Thank you again so much for tuning in and watching Tharon's Take. Georgia had a historical moment recently with some statewide elections. And many people were asking me, what is the Public Service Commission? And a lot of us who have been in politics for a while, we knew what it was and the responsibilities and how important it is to us as ratepayers and also taxpayers. But it became a big issue and also a big opportunity for Democrats when you had two open seats for the Public Service Commission become available in 2025. I'm joined today by a man who I'm getting to know here recently, but have followed his career for many years, and that is Peter Hubbard. Peter was just recently elected to the Public Service Commission, and he's been so grateful to come on and not only talk to us about this historic moment in history with this race, but also we want to know the man that's behind this remarkable journey that you've embarked upon. So, Peter, thank you so much for joining us today on Tharon's Take.
Yeah, thank you, Tharon. It's great to be here. And I'm happy to just engage and tell you a little bit more about the PSC because, frankly, not that many people knew what it was or what it did or why it was so important.
You got sworn in recently. So you walk us through that. So the race was in November, and then you got you had to get right to work in December. So take us through what you've been doing from winning the race until now.
Yeah, so November 4th, 2025 was the election. I actually was sworn in December 9th, but you have to wait until the office is vacated. So it wasn't until Commissioner Johnson, that's Fitz Johnson, stepped down December 31st. So he was able to continue to make decisions all the way up to the very end. Then January 1st is when my term began. But I already started working, looking at some of the decisions that were being made and hoping to kind of influence that large decision that was made December 19th. That was basically a vote that the Public Service Commission took just before the term ended to approve about a New York City's worth of power plants for data centers. And that was a decision that was made just before my term began, Dr. Alicia Johnson's term began. So, you know, there's work to be done there. There's work to look at that more critically, but that was something that took place before I even had a chance to weigh in on it.
So for our listeners and viewers, it was two people who were on the ballot at the same time. Your colleague, now your fellow commissioner, Dr. Alicia Johnson, also won her race. But before we go too deeper into you and this role, I want to know, like, who's the man? Like, tell us more about Peter, you know, where you were born, what you've been doing all these years, you know, more about your family.
Sure.
And then more importantly, what made you decide to want to go out here and test these cold and deep waters in Georgia to put your name on the ballot to run for office?
Yeah, it takes a certain kind, that's for sure. So, no, I grew up in just north of the border in Tennessee, and in Cleveland, Tennessee, but then tried to get as far away from home as possible, but still pay in-state tuition. So I went to the University of Memphis. I studied physics and math. And then I joined the Peace Corps, went to Morocco for a couple of years, met my wife while I was there. She's a public health service officer, and so that's how we moved to Atlanta was when she worked for the CDC. We moved here back in 2015. And at the time, what I was doing was a lot of energy consulting, looking at how to put together long-term power plans for utilities, the very same thing that we do here at the PSC. We oversee that long-term power planning process. And what I did was, I've been doing that as a career, and I started looking more critically at the power plans we were doing in the state and thinking we could do better. And so I formed a nonprofit, started going down in front of the Public Service Commission as an expert witness to say, here are the things that I think we could be doing better to help lower folks' power bills and embrace more clean energy. I did that starting in 2019. And for 4 power plans for 6 years, basically the entire term of a public service commissioner, I was an expert witness saying, let's do better. And it kept falling on deaf ears. And that's really what motivated me to jump into the race. First of all, there hasn't been an election at the PSC in 5 years because of the way that we elect commissioners. They have to live in a district. But it's a statewide election that dilutes black voters. But while that was being litigated and it eventually was overturned at the Supreme Court, 5 years, no election. So that's why I only earned the last year of a 6-year term. But it was still important for me to jump in this race because we have a real opportunity. We're kind of behind the 8 ball on terms of embracing clean energy, especially distributed rooftop, things that have not advanced as much here. And I see so much opportunity and underinvestment in certain areas that I had to jump in this race. I had to help influence the state to move in the direction that we need to. Not only, businesses want clean energy, they want lower cost energy, they want reliable energy, and I don't see us necessarily delivering all three of those. And I know that we can. We just have to move in the right direction. So I need an outlet for all of my my live, eat, breathe energy, and this is the best outlet for me. This is my lane. This is where I can do something about it. So just seeing that we could do better and knowing that I had something to contribute, that's what got me into this race.
So it's really good to hear that you didn't just emerge on the scenes. I mean, you were a familiar face at these commission meetings. The public service commissioners, they knew you as an expert when it came to energy policy, and you basically said, hey, if I want to get things to change, I need to put my name out there. Talk a little bit about the primary. So you decide with your family, you talk to your wife, and you have kids.
I've got a 4-year-old, and today is my 10-year-old's birthday son. So I have a 10-year-old son, 4-year-old daughter.
Well, happy birthday to your son. His name is?
Eli.
Eli. Well, happy birthday, Eli. Sorry I grabbed your dad away from celebrating your birthday, but I'm sure he's got some big things planned for you. So, Peter, after talking to your family, consulting with your wife, and I'm sure some very close allies, you decided that you want to run again because you previously had run for a state house seat, and you were not successful. So this wasn't your first time running for public office. But talk a little bit about that race for your state house seat, and then what did you learn from that, and then how did you use that time to really prepare you for the statewide race?
Yeah, so I ran for House District 90 in 2022 that ultimately Syra Draper won. But the reason why I wanted to enter into that race 3 years ago was to understand what sort of resources might there be out there and what's the process like. I was very green in that department, but it taught me a lot, even though I didn't make it out of the primary. Fast forward to 2025, and again, there hadn't been elections in the PSC for a long time, so I was just biding my time until there was an opportunity. But when it emerged, when there was a chance to run, I jumped on it. Now, I think because I ran in 2022, I had my campaign manager reach out to me and say, I saw you run a few years ago, and I think you can actually do this time. So we put together a really good plan. We were smart about it. We really tried to focus in on, for example, Georgia Power Company customers saw the most acute bill increases. So we really focused in on targeting those voters and trying to pull them out to vote in an off-year special election type where it's hard to predict. And so I learned a lot along the way, but certainly had to learn as I was going. We had to kind of make it up as we go and figure out how to message this along the way. But it became very clear that, again, with 6 rate increases in over 2 years, that was the message: affordability. It was hard to get away from that. Here's why your power bill's gone up. It's the all Republican commission that we've had, and here's what we can do about it. So, I mean, I learned a lot along the way, but that was, I think we had to just kind of see what was working, test different messages, and certainly the affordability. And something that I think distinguishes me is that I actually can put solutions on the table. We can talk about that, but what are the ways to actually lower folks' power bills? It'll take time. It's not going to be an immediate thing that happens once you elect 2 out of 5 commissioners on this Public Service Commission, but there's definitely things that we can be doing this year and when we get that 3rd seat next year.
So clearly you learned a lot, and it wasn't your first time running for office. You definitely said something there earlier, that 3rd seat is going to be one to watch, and Democrats right now are feeling very emboldened because of what you and Dr. Alicia Johnson did. But you went to a runoff, so there were 3 people in the race. I remember vividly receiving a lot of text messages from you throughout the race, but definitely in that runoff, you just shared with us that you targeted consumers, people who that were getting Georgia power bills. But what did you do to win that runoff, which you only had, 4 weeks to run?
That's right, and it's such a short time frame. Really, it was to just distinguish myself from the main candidate, who at the time was Keisha Waits. And so I was someone who didn't have much name recognition, so a lot of those text messages you received were to try to tell voters, hey, here's an actual energy expert, someone who has something to bring to the table at the Public Service Commission. And I also tried to draw a distinction between my opponent and kind of highlight the record. Everything very factual, but it was just laid out on the table for voters to decide. Do we want someone who who is approaching this as an expert and wants to contribute that expertise to the Public Service Commission, or do we want someone who, maybe has other motivations for running for office?
So you didn't get a lot of endorsements. I mean, I think you got a lot of endorsements that came late, but during the primary, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, did you have any big endorsements?
Not so many because, a lot of folks really want to let the voters decide who that primary voter will be, primary candidate will be. And I think that's important to let the voters decide who they want to be the nominee. Of course, you can garner support ahead of time. But again, I was a no-name candidate. So I really had to work hard to reach out to those folks and earn some of those endorsements. I only got a few in 2022, but I was able to add several more this time around. I think folks recognize that it's a rarity to have a subject matter expert who wants to run for public service, who wants to put themselves out there like that. And so folks started to recognize that after a while.
So then you become the nominee, and you go head-to-head with the Republican incumbent. Take us quickly through what that was like. I know you were crisscrossing all across the state. I had people in Savannah tell me that you spent some time there. I think you definitely spent some time in Middle Georgia, Macon, Columbus. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think you spent some time in North Georgia, too. I'm from Athens, but I think that Northeast corridor you focused on a lot. But take us through sort of now you're head-to-head. You know that a lot of people are wondering what the turnout is going to be. There were a lot of municipal elections. But what are some of the things that you did that you haven't really spoken about publicly?
Yeah, well, and I'd add Albany to that list as well.
Yeah, of course, Southwest, yes.
I lost count around 70 of how many meet and greets and town halls and webinars and things that I went to, but it was important to just get out there and out-compete my opponent. And so what I did in the general really was just try and meet as many people as I could. I participated in a debate with the Atlanta Press Club, and I really tried to channel John Ossoff, David Perdue, when only one of those gentlemen showed up to the debate.
Yes.
And I still distinctly remember reaching out my arm to an empty lectern and hearing all of the camera shutters click. So I recreated that message, just kind of saying, look, I'm willing to step up and defend my positions, but my opponent isn't. So I tried to draw that distinction as well. And, it was important that, there's no reason to vote for one or the other, Dr. Alicia Johnson or Peter Hubbard. You should vote for both. And so we just ran as a ticket.
I ran as a ticket, yeah.
She tried to cover the southern part of the state. I tried to cover the northern part of the state.
Because she's based in Savannah.
She's in Savannah.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good strategy. Well, guys, you heard it here first at Tharon's Take that you guys were able to come together and say, look, let's cover the whole state, because a lot of folks, including myself, who I've done countless amount of campaigns statewide, a lot local. It was an off year. It wasn't even a gubernatorial year or a presidential year. Usually those elections, we see high turnout in Georgia, but the way you guys were able to split the state up, utilize your strategy, and communicate directly with voters clearly paid off. All right, so now you have the opportunity. You're in the seat. You got sworn in early December. You now have had your first meeting. Talk to our listeners and viewers about what are going to be some of your top priorities.
Well, so in the immediate near term, I have to just focus on just until the legislature gavels into session, gearing up for the next campaign. But while the legislature is in session, of course, I'm at the Public Service Commission just across the street, but there's a lot of kind of more systemic change that I'd like to see by helping shepherd some bills through. So there's already a couple of things that are percolating. We don't have to reinvent the wheel as well. So I'm looking at model legislation in other states that have passed and that we could adopt and implement here in Georgia. And I'll just give you an example. Utah, the only state now that's done this, has a program called Balcony Solar. You can go to a Costco, buy a couple of panels, plug it in without having to go through a complicated interconnection process. And for that investment, you can save quite a bit off your bill, maybe 10, 15%. Over a long period of time. And so things like that are just simple little wins that I'm trying to, even if it can't get through this legislative session, it's a marker that says, here's what we can do if you give us more levers of power and kind of runway to do what we'd like to do. There's a whole host of things, though, on the solar side, on even data centers, for example.
I was going to bring up data centers.
I mean,
but I'm glad you took it there. Yeah, so let's dive into data centers.
I mean, data centers. So there's a lot of opportunity, but a lot of risk as well. So the risk is, I mentioned New York City's worth of power plants, basically, mostly gas and batteries, to serve data centers, there's a risk that we build all of that and they don't quite show up in the numbers that they've said they'd show up in. And there's some concern that there might be a bubble out there in data centers and AI. There's also the risk that they might show up, but they might not stick around for the full life of all these power plants to pay them off. And that's a concern on the front end, back end. So data centers are a risk if they don't show up in the numbers that we're building power plants to. If that happens, then we have overbuilt and we're on the hook for assets that aren't being used as well as they should be. And that just raises our costs. So there is a risk there. Now, if they do all show up, if they do all pay their fair share, and that's what I'll be looking into more. Right now, we're taking it at face value from the power company and the commission that they're paying their fair share. After I've had a chance to look into this and determine for myself if they're paying their fair share, then I can say, if they do all show up in the numbers promised, then it can help lower folks' power bills. If you have everyone paying in their fair share, it can help to lower the average cost for everyone, and you can use that to give some leverage back or value back to everyday ratepayers. But data centers can be a force for good or bad. It's really in the smart policy and the implementation and how we invite them. And we frankly have to also put some requirements on them, things like community benefit agreements. If you want to come into a community, this is a little bit beyond the PSC, but still I have the bully pulpit and I can talk about these things and talk about how they should be doing business well, making sure that we're thinking about the water requirements and not drawing too much on those. The power is what I'm focused on at the PSC on data centers. And I, there's opportunity even to work with those data centers to have a little bit of flexibility on their side. And then we can mine the capacity of the grid that we already have instead of building new power plants for them. And you have even more savings. If they're paying full freight, but we're not building new power plants for them, that helps lower folks' power bills. So they're willing to do this. Data centers, they want clean energy. They want to do business in Georgia, but they want to do it the right way. And there are smarter ways to do it than, I think, than building dirty fossil fuel power plants. Kind of put us on this long-term subscription model of always having to buy fuel instead of building some of the lower cost solutions like solar, where the fuel is free. It's delivered right to the power plant every day. And again, using what we already have, the grid we already have more efficiently. These are, they sound simple on paper, complicated to implement, but other places are doing them. Other states are already doing these things, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. So what I'm trying to do is help fit the puzzle pieces together for data centers so they can thrive here in a way that they're paying their fair share. As long as all of that's happening, then, that's a portion of it. There's more. I don't want them necessarily being built in someone's backyard, and there's concerns around that. But we have to be smarter about policies around data center. I haven't seen a cohesive, internally consistent policy here. Since 2018, there's been zero sales and use tax on data centers. And so nothing going into the state coffers. And oftentimes those data centers are being discounted on the property assessments as well. So they're paying a lot less than they otherwise should be on property tax revenues. There are issues and concerns around data centers that people are vocalizing, and I don't think that we're paying enough attention to them. I know that it is a potent political issue. Frankly, more Republicans are opposed to data centers than Democrats are. It's going to continue to be a conversation. I think it's why some Republicans were interested in supporting me, because I'm talking about it and thinking about how we can fit them into this mix, but make sure that it's not being, the costs aren't being borne by folks like you and me paying a power bill.
So what I'm hearing is that data centers are here, and Georgia has been very attractive for them, but you're going into it with sort of a cautiously optimistic approach where, hey, I understand what we have on paper and what you're supposed to do, but you just did a good job of pointing out some different ways that we can look at it and what Georgia can emulate and what other states are doing. But I didn't get from you that, hey, they're bad. They can be good, but if the framework is done the right way, and you at the PSC with the rate freeze, and they actually pay their fair share a little bit more, and it does help reduce the large
can.
load liability. It can.
It can.
Then we can probably work out a long-term solution.
And they're not all the same. I mean, I'm not a big fan of crypto mining, and we're the second state, I think, after Texas for that. We've got quite a bit of it. I don't see much benefit to Georgians to that. But again, I think that they can contribute and help lower our costs. I don't see that happening right now. Again, I think they're putting more costs and risk onto us based on the decisions of the Public Service Commission we've had up to now. And I just think we need to be smarter about how we're. I think we need to be smarter about how data centers are doing business here in the state, especially around power.
You mentioned something that I want to make sure I get in before we go to the next sort of topic. Your win wasn't just a win. You guys blew your opponents out.
26-point difference.
26-point difference. And there was nobody, Peter, including myself, that were predicting the outcome of this race. A lot of people, you started to see it shifting. I had started hearing Republicans saying, oh, my God, we're worried about early vote numbers. And then you got to Election Day, and then you start hearing some Democrats saying, man, we're going to possibly win this thing. But no one, maybe you did, said that you were going to win by 26 points.
We thought we had a good advantage, maybe 10 or 12 points, but it was 63-37. And I think that's because we had a fair number of Republicans.
Well, I want to dig deeper on that. So did you campaign directly to Republicans? Because you don't get that margin with just Democratic turnout. There had to be some independents and Republicans that resonated with the message that you were campaigning on.
Well, I mean, you kind of you meet voters where they are. And if you're talking to more conservative voters, and you can say things like, you should be able to do what you want with your land. If you want to farm the sun, just like we farm the land and the soil and and the water here, agriculture is the biggest business in Georgia, so we should be able to farm the sun. States' land rights, landowners' rights, or energy independence, or whatever the topic happens to be, it can resonate with a conservative voter or an independent voter. Mostly, I think people were motivated by they're frustrated with their power bill. And that it doesn't matter what your political allegiance is. Everyone has to pay a power bill, and they don't want to pay more than they have to. So just simply keeping it on that simple messaging of, are you happy with your power bill? Is it affordable to you? If not, then why is it happening? It's happening because of the commission we have. So if you want to do something about that, then you need to have folks that are thinking about how we can tackle this in an intelligent way. So, simple as that.
Yeah. So now, okay. Let's tell the viewers and listeners, what do you plan to do in your role as a public service commissioner and within the rules and regulations of the commission? What are you going to plan to do to work with your other colleagues to try to lower people's power bills in Georgia?
Yeah, no, it's important to know that we won 2 seats out of 5 on the commission, so there's more work to be done, and we'll have a lot more latitude to implement real change when we have that 3rd seat on the commission. So a lot of what I'm going to be doing as a commissioner, or really as a candidate, I should say, is to make that case that the job isn't done and we need I need a 6-year term and that runway to implement change. For example, that long-term plan that Georgia Power presents every 3 years, that just concluded before my term started, and it won't happen until 2028. It's lucky happenstance, I suppose. So I need to be able to be on the commission so I can really sink my teeth into those details and push hard on those areas where I see the thumb on the scale for more expensive resources like fossil fuel power plants. I want to be able to kind of demonstrate with evidence that there are lower cost ways to meet energy needs of the state, of the data centers and all of that, but do it in just a more comprehensive and intelligent way to do it. I know that's big picture. There's some detail in there that we're going to have to get into, but a lot of what I want to do is give the value back to solar so that people who want to use their own private capital to put solar on their roof or a battery in their garage, they are bringing their own capital to the table. There might be something that allows them, though, to get some value out of it, so they're not just doing it for the greater good. They should be able to use it to actually lower their power bills. So just giving that value back to certain resources, or even multifamily housing, people that rent their homes, they should be able to access and tap into those same resources. And you don't necessarily have to have solar on your rooftop. You should be able to tap into community solar programs. I know I'm talking a lot about solar. There's also things related to just connecting seniors and low-income folks with resources that are out there
Yes,
that they
that's
haven't
important.
necessarily connected with. I know that they've seen, especially folks on fixed income, their bills have gone up, but they don't have the means to necessarily keep up with that. So it's a struggle. Disconnections, we have a rate 10 times higher than the national average here. That has to be addressed. The fact that the power company earned $2.5 billion in profits in 2024, but we have close to 200,000 households being disconnected every year. I mean, you can lose the groceries in your fridge, your medicine goes bad. It's not the way that we should be doing business in the States. So I want to work hard on that as well. There's almost too much to talk about,
I get it.
honestly.
No. Well, thank you for doing that. But no, we really appreciate your openness and transparency and taking us deeper into what you plan to do. So when you are done serving as a commissioner, what do you want people to say about Peter Hubbard, and particularly what did you do to sort of reform energy policies, make them better, to be a forward thinker, to make sure that people's sort of way of life was improved under your tenure as a commissioner?
That's a great question. I don't want to get ahead of my skis too much, but I think about how when we have thoughtful leadership, like we think about how Atlanta is at the crossroads of railroads, and that's why it was founded here. And let's take advantage of that geography and let's build a world-class airport here. And that vision kind of led to Atlanta being what it is today. I think we can do the same thing on the energy side. If we have that vision and have a sustained plan to put it into place, we can lower the cost of producing electricity. We can make it cleaner. That's going to be attractive to businesses, and that will have a long-term effect on this state. It'll make it an attractive place for people to live and work. And I mean, that's what I hope, is that we look back in 15, 20 years and think, thank goodness that someone joined the commission who can push it in that direction. Because we have to start addressing climate change. We have to start addressing the affordability. I mean, we haven't really seen the impact of this recent decision to build a number of power plants for data centers. So if we don't kind of address this, then bills are going to keep going up. I'd like this to be that inflection point where we start to see things change. We start to see giving some value back to people who pay their bills rather, not just the shareholders of the utilities that that are making that energy. So that's what I hope, is that legacy is people see that this was a turning point and we made smart decisions and they're enjoying the benefits of it 10, 15, 20 years down the road.
So looking ahead, what's in store? I know you talked a lot about some of the things you want to do. You made it very clear that you're serving while you're still campaigning, hopefully to get a new 6-year term. And then also tell us how we as taxpayers, ratepayers, people who are voters for the Public Service Commission, how can we stay informed? And more importantly, how do you encourage us to stay engaged?
Sure. So, I mean, there's a couple of different ways that I'd love for folks to stay engaged. One is just visit the campaign website, which will remain peterforgeorgia.com, peterforgeorgia.com. And there's a way to sign up there to stay informed on the campaign side of things. On the commission side of things, once I have an assistant, I'll also stand up a newsletter there as well so that people can see what I'm doing on the PSC side. So there's two different worlds, two different hats that I have to wear. But I think that's important to make sure that that's part of the accountability, is what am I actually doing? I have a short 1-year term. I have to make the most of it, try and put some wins up on the scoreboard. Try and bring some of my colleagues along with me on that. It's going to be helpful to have a third commissioner. And I think their constituents are also looking for solutions to lower their power bills. And I think that's what I'm bringing to the table. So you can stay informed that way, both on both different sides. And I just come to an event that I'll be at. I'll be at town halls. I'll be at meet and greets. I'm going to be out and about, especially during the legislative session. That's a fundraising blackout period. So all I can do is just be a commissioner and just be out and about among the people. And then, once the general kicks off, then it'll just be off to the races, making that argument that we need to get that third seat on the commission. Here's what we were able to kind of get through the legislature. Here's what we're going to do next year when we win back the House, when we have that third seat on the commission. So laying out that vision. I mean, that's what this next year looks like. I mean, I've got my work cut out for me, but this is my lane. This is what, this is where I can bring that expertise to bear.
Real quick as we wrap up, you talk a lot about the third seat. How's it going with your other fellow public service commissioners now? I mean, you guys have had one vote so far, and we're taping this in early January. But how have you been received? How are you working with them? And do you believe that if you were to get a third seat, which, to break it down for our viewers and listeners, you have two Democrats and 3 Republicans. So is it fair to assume that the Republicans are going to vote in Republican line and you and Dr. Alicia Johnson are going to vote Democrats? Or could we see some compromise where you guys may mix it up a little bit?
Well, I mean, I would like to think that this vote last November, 2 months ago, kind of made them realize that they need to think more closely about how they vote. And I do think that there is certainly overlap. The ways to bring down folks' power bills and work with even the Republicans. I mean, again, they're facing a lot of the same issues. We all live in the same state. So I will absolutely work with Republicans to find solutions to lower power bills for people. No matter, we can come together on that. But at the same time, I often make the case if they're not, taking those decisions that will help consumers, then I'll call them out on that. So it's sort of a carrot and stick approach. I absolutely want to work with each one of the commissioners, and will do my best to do that. It'll be up to them to kind of also meet me and find ways that we can work for the people. And if they're, if that proves difficult to do, then that'll just help to make the case that we need that third seat so that we can implement the vision that we're laying out.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. This has indeed been a very informative interview for me. I learned a lot just talking to you, and good luck to you in serving the people of Georgia, also in your campaign. And you're welcome back anytime to come back on Tharon Say. But we really appreciate you taking some time to talk to us today.
Yeah, thank you, Tharon, and I appreciate all of your viewers.
Appreciate it.